I guess it's pretty unlikely that you don't know what Anarcho Capitalism is if you started this video, but in the astounding case that you don't know it, well, there are a lot of videos out there that might explain this stuff in a, let's say, larger detail, but in an absolute nutshell. Anarcho Capitalism is the abolishment of rulers, while the rules are defined by the market, which means by contracts between free people. And our laws vanish too, but they get replaced with the non-aggression principle, which states that there is no reason to hurt anyone, to steal from anyone, these things, unless hurting in self-defense, or the assist of self-defense, within reasonable limits, of course. And does it sound fuzzy? Well, it kind of is, and this leads to a problem we tackle a little bit later. Well, since it makes way more sense to discuss a human than just an idea, I had to select someone I refer to, and I choose you, Mr. Dapperton. Link to his channel is in the description. And I go with you especially with your ultimate video about Anarcho Capitalism, because it is remarkable well done and points out that most critics on Anarcho Capitalism is plain wrong, and it's wrong because it's based on false assumptions, such as only the government cares for the poor, can defend you, or can construct roads. And I won't not go into that because, well, I would say it's pretty clear for most of us that whatever the state does, any other structure could do. If you haven't checked out this very video, it's a very good summary, and it would have taken Stefan Molyneux about 400 hours to point out the same stuff. But in the solution he pointed out there is a major flaw, and before I can point it out, let's get some distance to understand this later on and look to a flaw that every anarcho-capitalist will understand. Let's jump over to the communists and their hate for money. I discussed a lot with them and how they want to get rid of money, of this evil capital, and in essence there are three solutions to that. One, we all go back to actually Stone Age. Everybody makes the stuff he needs himself, just scrap civilization. Two, everybody makes as much as he can and takes only as much as he needs, and this is easy to debunk because, well, we tried that over and over and over again, and it never works because those who take a lot and give nothing are benefited the most. Therefore everybody will go more or less down this way or in this direction, and it ends up that nobody produces anything, but everybody thinks he has a right to get stuff. And there's always a solution to force these people to work, which is in the end slavery, and this will also lead not exactly to a healthy society. And there is of course the solution of, well, if you do something useful, you get points for doing useful stuff, and you can use these points for getting other stuff that you want, and we call this social points, and so on and so on. Yeah, man, you are reinventing money right there. And we're speaking about real money, not that fiat shit that we use right now. You reinvented real money, the stuff that anarcho-capitalists talking about. Congratulations to you. These third options come up over and over and over again, but communists say that something like that, like, no, it's not money, it's not capital, it looks like it and it works more or less like it, but we call it differently, it's not money, it's not capital. Well, it's still money. Sorry. And if you grin now because you're an anarcho-capitalist or just a normal capitalist, keep in mind why you grin. So let's go over to the anarcho-capitalists. We don't need a state, we can privatize law and law enforcement and military, so it has to serve us. And if you want to live in a protected place, well, you have to be a member of a homeowner club that pays for the protections and law enforcement and so on and so on and so on. Well, you reinvented the state. No, it's not a state, it's entirely different because it's free, and if it vanishes, if it does a bad job. Yeah, man, like states. Can you remember the Roman Empire? vanished because it did a bad job at the end of its existence. The people were not very happy with the performance, and it was replaced by other states that were replaced by other states that were replaced, and so on and so on. The state is in essence a company and follows the rules that every other company follows, and this is in the end the rules of the market. Let me point this out in a purely capitalistic system. Think about the conglomeration of companies, and it does not matter if we're talking about a loose corporation, a caraccio, or a company with a lot of sub-companies. The thing is always the same. So let's stick with the most easy version, a company that started to divide itself into sub-companies by forming a company from the IT department, from production, accounting, and so on. Perhaps some smaller companies were bought, whatever. Every single one of these entities is a company for its own, with specific rules and standards. You see, accounting will follow a different set of rules than production, but they all still have to accept the rules from the mother company that, well, let's say, allows them to exist in essence. These structures might do nothing, just take money from the smaller companies and give it to someone else for absolutely no gain for the smaller structures below. Or just take money from one company or department or whatever that could bring this money to real good use and transfer it to another company or department or whatever that just burns the money with no gain for anyone, because someone in the mother company created a little sub-company for his little daughter to have a good job, to be a CEO and just get money for doing nothing. Or perhaps they take the money and give it to a department they deem a good investment, like R&D, taken from production, give it to R&D. Perhaps it's a good investment. Who knows? Who knows? These things happen in capitalism, and that's the reason big companies fail. That's a reason why small ones thrive. In theory, big companies would ever rule the landscape because of synergy effects. They only need one accounting office, they only need one R&D, and they can concentrate marketing efforts, and so on and so on. But they start to become corrupt, and this leads to inefficiency, and this leads to their downfall, and this leads that smaller ones take over this tumbling giant and make it their own and grow and start this thing all over again. That's the market. That's normal. That happens every day. And please remember, when you grin above the stupid communists that can't see that they accepted money as a vital thing to society, also they persist in calling it differently and saying it's not money after all, but it is. But let's go on. In economy, things that fit together tend up together. The idea that you fuse all the companies that where the membership is mandatory together makes absolutely sense. But again, you reinvented the state. Look, if you create an anarcho-capitalist society, you will have to have some borders with peoples with guns there, because there are other societies around them who want to come over and take their stuff, and so on. You have to have borders to other regions, cultures, and forms of societies. And please don't start with World Revolution One system because it's the best system. Except that there are always people around who want to follow a different set of rules that is contrary to your own rules. A lot of people want to live in a crappy system, and they have the goddamn right to wanting that or to get that. So the first thing that this capstone society will agree to is to outsource border defense. It's not that everyone wants to stand on this wall. So they will take someone who is a trained professional and give them the responsibility to guard this wall. And everyone who wants to live inside of these walls will have to pay for this service. And there are, of course, these private courts and enforce, in the end of the day, just the non-aggression principle, which means that they work all day long on the question, was this self-defense or was it not? And don't fool yourself, they will not run out of work anytime soon. As an example, someone says he will blow up the house of his neighbor. And whenever he sees his neighbor, he tells him, I'm gonna blow up your house. And then he starts to pile up dynamite on his lawn. At what point can you start to defend yourself? There are 1,000 of true answers to that. It depends which true answer you prefer. You end up with a slightly different law system based on this decision. If you want your life in a system where you can shoot him just for the threat, if it is reasonable, fine. If you want to live in a society where you can't act as long as he did not light the fuse, fine. If you want to live in a society where you can't do anything to the moment that he did actually harm, it's also fine. I don't care, but I want to know which is to apply here in my neighborhood. Which interpretation takes my neighborhood as the right one, the true one. And I will move to this neighborhood with the law that I think is more appealing. Again, we're talking about a free market of ideas. And again, give this system time to age, and they will start to pile up a lot of useful junk in their laws. And as it piles up, it becomes more contradictory to the basic idea, although the reason they started to clarify was to make it clear to the consumers what is to apply. They define their product. Does this trash anarcho capitalism as an idea? Of course not. But if you say that you want a reset of our society, that you want to start to build a law from scratch, build up the structures from scratch, leave all this obsolete stuff, concentrate on the stuff we need, you end up in the same spot like anarcho capitalism wants to get there. The big difference between states and companies is that we know that companies can fail and will vanish. But states, there's always this myth about states. Oh no, states, they are completely different. They will exist forever. Well, they don't. I sit here in Austria. In the last 300 or 500 years or whatever, we had at least 4 different names, ruler systems and ruling bodies. All of them but one failed. One is about to fail. So what? We will have a new one. Who cares? States fail. That's part of the plan. We just have to accept them. Let them fail. Like, let companies fail if they don't perform. You see, I for one like the idea of anarcho capitalism, but for me, it's more like the idea of throwing out the weed from your field, eliminating the stuff that takes resources but bear no fruit or just too little. This is an idea I could follow and I would propagate, but the weed will always grow back. Always. As a conclusion or an attachment point for every anarcho capitalist who want to point out that I'm wrong, and please, go on. What I said is that the state is in fact a company. A private company that takes mandatory payments and deliver services that you have to accept. There are rules, there are standards that you have to follow if you want to live in the place of the world that this state has control over. And I say again, a state is in essence a company. You see, if there is a company that bans smoking on their premises, but allows the CEO to smoke, it's unfair, it sucks. But stranger things happened in capitalism, isn't it? And these things happen in purely capitalistic systems. You don't need a state to make crappy, unfair rules. Anarcho capitalism is not achievable by a revolution. It's not a system, it's an ideal. Like a weed-free field is an ideal. To follow this idea means to accept that every system needs maintenance, needs cutbacks, and needs a reset from time to time. But anarcho capitalism, in its true, pure form, can't be stable. Left alone, without maintenance, it will develop back in a state within just one day.